This is the ABQ Business Podcast
with your host, Jason Rigby.
Each week we'll interview visionary business leaders to inspire the creative power and spirit
That's in every entrepreneur.
discussing strengths, weaknesses, strategies, systems,
And the problems we can all solve together.
for a new future for local small business.
I just got done reading one of the most amazing books I have ever read. And I want to share this with you guys. Go on Amazon. If you use Kindle, whatever it is, go to eBay. I love buying used books on eBay. And type in the 4 disciplines of execution. It's the 4 disciplines of execution. It's by Chris McChesney. It's not a country singer, guys. Or Sean Covey and Jim Hulling. So it's Chris McChesney, Sean Covey, and Jim Hulling. It's the 4 disciplines of execution. I'm just going to go a little bit in the book because I want to kind of just let you guys know exactly how important this book is for you and your business. If you're an entrepreneur, you've got to have this book. I'm just telling you, I haven't read a book in a long time that was just so profound, so practical, and things that I can implement right now to focus me and to make me where I need to be for my businesses. 4 disciplines of execution. Let's get started. The first discipline is focus. Your finest effort is when you do 1 to 2 goals, period. If you have dozens of goals at your business, you're going to be mediocre at best. Execution always starts with focus. If you're not focused specifically, the rest is not going to help you. The 3 disciplines fall on execution first. And execution only happens when you focus. So discipline number 1 is focus on the wildly important. What does wildly important mean? Well, I'm going to go through the book with you in this one. And I think discipline number 1, I'm going to probably spend the most time. I may make this 2 podcasts depending on the time it takes because I want to keep it, if you're just listening to me and I'm not doing an interview, I can get boring and you can tune me out. I know many of you are working out or whatever you may be doing, driving in your car, and I don't want to bore you for, 20 minutes. But I want you to understand this book because I know it's going to help a lot of you. And I know as much as it helped me, I know it's going to do something extraordinary for you. Discipline number 1, focus on the wildly important. We all know the day-to-day jet lag is just this huge whirlwind of putting out fires and doing one thing after the other. So how do we narrow focus? How do we go from having 24 goals down to 1 or 2? How do we focus the new activities that we have in our life and especially our business? How do we get it to 1 or 2? And I use this not just in my business, I use this for me. It's like, I narrowed it down. It's like, what are the 1 or 2 things that I need to do personally that would make me successful for 2020? Practicing discipline 1 means narrowing your focus to a few highly important goals so that you can manageably achieve them in the midst of the whirlwind of your day job. They're understanding that, guys. They're not saying you don't have, I understand that you're going and getting pulled in all kind of different directions. But if you want to achieve these goals, you got to have 1 or 2. If you have, and this is what they were saying, if you have your whirlwind, your daily whirlwind, they understand that, and you have 2 to 3 goals, you'll probably achieve 1 or 2 of those. If you have 4 to 10 goals, you're going to achieve 1, maybe 2. If you have 11 to 20 goals, you're going to get 0 of them done. They did lots of data, lots of practice, lots of studies to see this. And it's true. How many times did we have all these goals or we make out these goals or we'll spend hours on in or we say, okay, this is what we're going to accomplish for this year. 2020, we did all that. I did that. But think about it. The chances of you actually achieving 11 to 20 goals is nothing. If you super focused on 1 or 2 things that were the most important, that were wildly important, as they say, you're going to reach them. You're going to achieve them. They say people who try to push many goals at once usually wind up doing a mediocre job on all of them. You can ignore the principle of focus, but it won't ignore you. Or you can leverage this principle to achieve your top goals one at a time, again and again and again. So conventional thinking, and this is what they say, all of our goals are priority one. We can successfully multitask and succeed at 5, 10, or 15 important goals. All we need to do is work harder and longer. I have 10, 15 goals. I'll do 10, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'll accomplish them all. The 4DX principle, which is the 4 disciplines, the 4DX principle is this. Many of our goals are important, but only 1 or 2 are wildly important. We call them WIGs. That's what they call them, W-I-G. They are the goals we must achieve. Our finest effort can only be given to 1 or 2 wildly important goals at a time. Our finest effort. Think about that. Our finest effort. So that you can have a somewhat balanced life. So that you can focus on. What if you had 1 or 2 goals that you need to focus on mentally for yourself? 1 or 2 goals that you wanted to focus on spiritually. 1 or 2 goals that you wanted to focus on physically. 1 or 2 goals that you're going to focus on your business. Think about that. And you narrowed it down. It would be amazing the things that you would be able to accomplish. The whirlwind is the day job. The goals are 2, maybe 1. If you can narrow it down to 1, that's awesome. While you don't lose track of the numbers in the whirlwind, discipline 1 requires intense focus on only 1 number. The measure of success for your wildly important goals, the 1 or 2 goals that you have. That's what you're going to, the whirlwind, whatever, that's going to happen. You're going to do that. That's going to happen every day. The wildly important goals, the only metric that you're judging yourself on, dude, think about this. This so simplifies everything. The metric, what you're going to measure yourself on is only 1 or 2 goals, the most important ones. Rule number 1, no team focuses on more than 2 wigs at the same time. So if you have a team, or you have employees, you're going to focus on 2 things. I did this with my team, and 2 things came up. I asked them, these are very important questions to ask your employees or your management team, whatever. I asked them, what are the things that they love about working at XYZ company? And then I said, what are the things that you dislike working at the company? And I said, let's be honest. We're going to have a team meeting. I want us to be brutally honest about this. It was so interesting. Everybody came up with, they love how customers feel after the process. And they love that feeling that they got, the empowerment of being able to help people and see the reaction and see how happy people are. The thing that they disliked the most was the downtime, the ups and downs. Well, guess what? I can take the 2 things, one that they like, we can make that better. We can have an obsession on customer experience and make that even better and have memorable moments and make my employees so happy because they already love that part. So I can train. I can do so many different things. I can focus on that. Number 2, the dislikes. Okay, now we need to fill your schedule. We need to fill your times. We need to make sure that you're not plateauing or that you're not getting bored or you're zoning out for 30 minutes on YouTube or just on social media because you're bored. How can we focus you to get where you're not feeling like there's ups and downs or yo-yos or back and forth? This is so cool, guys. Our best effort is when we focus on 1 or 2 wildly important goals at a time. And this is what they said here. Execution, there may be dozens or even hundreds of wigs across the entire initiative, but the key is not to overload any single leader, team, or individual performer. Remember, they are all dealing with the instant demands of the whirlwind. Keep this rule in mind as you consider the remaining 3 rules. If you violate this one, you will have lost your focus as an organization. Let them do their whirlwind, but they're going to focus on 1 or 2 things, and you're going to hammer them on those 1 or 2 things, and you're going to judge the success off of those people, off of 1 or 2 things. Rule number 2, the battles you choose must win the war. So rule number 1 was no team focus on more than 2 wigs at the same time. Rule number 2 is the battles you choose must win the war. Whether it's a military conflict or the war on hunger, cancer, or poverty, there's a relationship between battles and wars. Get this, guys. The only reason you fight a battle is to win the war. Not every battle that you choose to pick is going to win you the war. So why are you fighting that battle? The sole purpose of wigs at lower levels in the organization is to help achieve the wigs at higher levels. It isn't enough that the lower level wigs support or align with the higher wigs. The lower level wigs must ensure the success of the higher wigs. So your management team fighting the war. The people that are lower tier, they're going to fight the battles. So you want to have exceptional customer service? Well, I need the people on the front lines that are actually dealing with the customers. We've got to win those battles, and we need to see what those battles look like. And then my top management can look at it and say, what is the war? Where are we at? Customer expectation now is through the roof. Customer expectation is where we need to be at. And I did a whole podcast and a couple podcasts back, had amazing Amanda on there, just absolutely amazing. And I encourage you guys, if you want to know about customer expectation, to listen to that one. You're going to be impressed and you're going to be shocked to see the difference between what customer service is and then creating customer experiences. Big difference. So the war and the battles, I want you guys to remember that. Number 3 is senior leaders can veto but not dictate. The highest level executions are never reached when the strategy is devised solely by the top leaders of the organization and simply handed down to the leaders and teams below. Without involvement, you cannot create the high level of commitment that execution requires. You've got to involve everyone. You've got to make sure that your leaders understand that they're involving them. Ask the questions, let them dictate what the wigs are. Then you have, and the book talks about this. I want to get into this real quick. You ask, what is most important to you in your team? They tell you the things they like and dislike, like I did. I found out the 2 things. Those are my wigs. Now we're going to have meetings every week to hold everyone, from the leaders on down, everyone accountable to those 2. And we can ask, how has this been going? We said that we were going to do this for customer experience. Where are we at in this? You ask in front of everyone. Oh, okay, we know that we need to fill time and that we need to work with schedules and we don't want downtime. We don't like the yo-yo effects of not having customers and having customers. How can we create a way that we know that we can fulfill our time that will generate more customers, even though it may be slow? And then we assign tasks to certain people and then we hold them accountable once a week. When we have the meetings, all we do is focus on the 2 wigs. That's it. That's all we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about anything else. And in that meeting, it's an accountability meeting. That's all it is. Because when you have 5, 6 people in a meeting and you have your leaders in there and you're asking them, how did they do this week on this? How did they do this? And you consistently do that week after week after week, things are going to get accomplished towards those 2 goals. You're going to be able to execute. Rule number 3, this is what I love. They say this. I'm going to get the book right here and I want to read this to you guys. While the senior leaders will undoubtedly determine the top level wig, they must allow the leaders at each level below to find the wigs for their teams. This not only leverages the knowledge of these leaders, but also creates a greater sense of ownership and involvement. You've got to have buy-in, guys. We've all heard that. How do you create that? By letting them establish these. Simply put, they become more engaged in a goal that they choose themselves, and that supports a worthy organizational goal. Senior leaders then exercise their right to veto if the battles chosen are not going to win the war. Ask them. They know the battles, and you know the war. And then rule number 4, all wigs must have a finish line in the form of X to Y by when. Every wig at every level must contain a clearly measurable result, as well as the date by which the result must be achieved. So they use an example of man on the moon. That's the war. We need to beat Russia and get a man on the moon. So that's the war, man on the moon. And they show this. The battles, navigation. We got to figure out navigation. How are we going to get to the moon? Propulsion. How are we going to get our rockets there, our spaceships there? And then number 3 is life support. And I know some of you have conspiracy theories and you don't believe you're on the moon. We can use this as a theory if you don't believe that. But the war is the man on the moon. The battles are life support, propulsion, navigation. Each of those teams are going to do things. We're going to focus on navigation. How are we going to do that? How are we going to win the battle on navigation? 2 things that's going to help us win the battle on navigation. Propulsion. Maybe that's 1 or 2 things. Those are wigs. Life support, 1 or 2. That's all we need. And these battles, working on 3 to 6 goals for these 3 teams, is going to win the war. I hope you guys are understanding this. If not, get the book. I may not be explaining it right, but I'm just so excited. So this was interesting. And they put this NASA's goals in 1958. They had like 8 goals. They were really big. It was the expansion of human knowledge, the improvement of the usefulness, performance of speed, safety, and efficiency of aeronautical and space vehicles, the development and operation of vehicles, carrying instruments, equipment, supplies, living organisms, the establishment of long-range studies, the preservation of the role of the United States as a leader in aeronautical and space science and technology. Number 6, here's all their goals. The making available to agencies directly concerned with national defense, discoveries of military value and significance, the furnishing by... You guys have already checked out. And these are huge. I could go on and on. Number 7, cooperation by the United States with other nations and groups of nations. Here's what happened in 1961. JFK came out and gave a speech and he said, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieve the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. One goal. There was 7 huge long goals that never would have happened. In 1961, the President of the United States comes out and gives one clear wig. One clear goal, and they accomplished that. Because it's a vague strategic intent is what they talk about. We have lots of strategic intents, and we'll talk about it and we'll write in our books and nothing gets done. But when you can take a vague strategic intent and then be specific, finish line, you're in there, guys. Too many organizational goals are hazy and imprecise, leaving people wondering what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. Discipline 1 provides clear, unmistakable finish lines so people know exactly what success looks like. It is your responsibility as a leader to make sure that people know specifically what success looks like. And there needs to be a timeline and 1 or 2 goals that creates that success for them. Get that, guys. It creates the success for them if they follow a clear, precise goal. I love that. It's so cool. Discipline number 2. We're going to get into this one. Act on the lead measures. The second discipline is to apply disproportionate energy to the activities that drive your lead measures. This provides the leverage for achieving the lag measure. Discipline 2 is the discipline of leverage. Lead measures are the measures of the activities most concerned by achieving the goal. Let me give you an example. Discipline 1 is focus on the wildly important. Discipline number 2 is act on the lead measures. While a lag measure tells you if you've achieved the goal, a lead measure tells you if you are likely to achieve the goal. While a lag measure is hard to do anything about, a lead measure is virtually within your control. You can turn around and say, we wanted to make $500,000 this month. And then you look and you said, we made $418,000. That's a lag measure. A lead measure is you keeping track of that, knowing exactly where you are, knowing how many more ROs you need or sales or whatever it may be to get to that level. How many vendors do you need? Is there a supply issue? These are the things. Key performance indicators, what we call them, KPIs. Lead measures. They are in your control. If you are consistently watching those, and you're only watching those for the 1 to 2 wigs that you need to do. For example, while you can't control how often your car breaks down the road, a lag measure, you can certainly control how often your car receives routine maintenance, a lead measure. And the more you act on the lead measure, the more likely you to avoid that roadside breakdown. You're not going to get the surprises, guys, because you're being proactive, not reactive. I think that is so important, and we're coming up on 20 minutes, and I don't want to go more than that. So we're going to finish Discipline 2, the next podcast. I may do a couple of these because I want you guys, but if you haven't bought the book, get it. Want to thank our sponsors real quick, Rigby Digital, Tartle, 99.9 The Beat, ABQ Live Magazine, Quality Mazda, all of those. Thank you guys. Support local business here in Albuquerque. Support each other. We're not in competition with each other, guys. We're in competition with these outside companies that are coming in, these big behemoth organizations that are coming in and taking over. Let's team up together as local business. Let's be successful. Let's provide excellent service. Let's be the best leaders that we can be. And let's change Albuquerque for the better and be the example that we know that we can be if we're giving 100% and we're focused and we're clear. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast.
And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com.
Make sure to subscribe and share, and go to abqpodcast.com.
Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur
and business owner.